Hey, what's up, guys? So this video might be kind of confusing for some of you guys. You might be wondering, hey, why is this video happening? You know, why do you have to redo this vivarium? And the reason for this is because the drainage layer wasn't actually a drainage layer. Now let me explain what that means. So this vivarium I set up probably 6 years ago when I first got a rough green snake, and I wanted to make a nice cool vivarium with live plants for it to just live in. Now, the problem with this is when I set it up, the gravel that I used for the drainage layer and the potting soil had no barrier to prevent them from mixing. So basically they mixed over these 6 years, causing it eventually that if you water it too much, the water will just make the entire soil super soggy, causing a lot of problems. Now, the main problems is one, it sours the soil so it can kill the plants that you have growing in there, and two, the snake that I had in there is a terrestrial species of snake that doesn't need to be like super moist all the time. Now, the condition that this can cause in snakes is called scale rot. Now, obviously that sounds really bad, and it is. It's a big problem on snakes if you keep them in water for too long, or if they're in a moist environment for way longer than they need to be. So basically, this was happening to Tourmaline, the racer, the yellow-bellied racer that I had in this vivarium. And it wasn't super serious. Like, his belly scales, his scoots basically look like your fingers when they're pruning. Like, that's basically the same concept. Except if I didn't catch it when I did, it could have kept on getting worse and worse, and it could have turned into scale rot. Now that we completed taking out all the plants and saving the ones that I wanted to keep, we can move on to taking out the potting soil and taking out this nasty background. So this right here is called a metallomat, and normally you would use them for some kind of like pond filter, or maybe like a massive filter for like a huge aquarium. But for our purposes, we're just going to be using it as a false bottom. And guys may be wondering, why would I choose this way of doing a false bottom instead of the previous way I was using, the previous version of false bottom that I made? Is because this is a really dark color. It just blends in. You can barely see it when it's underneath the substrate. It just looks like part of the substrate. And for this one, yeah, I just wanted it more sleek and simple. You know, a lot less obvious that it's a false bottom. Now this right here is weed cover. Basically, this is the stuff that you put underneath your mulch to prevent weeds from growing up through the mulch. And turns out it's also really good for keeping like small particles of substrate from going into your false bottom. So instead of using like carbon screen like I used last time, I decided to use this stuff because technically this stuff prevents even smaller particles from going through. This box right here contains the new background for the Vivarium. Oh, I hate the sound so much. But here we go. Moving on to the next step, this is the active carbon layer. Basically, this is just designed to just keep the entire system a little bit cleaner, because whenever the water flows through this layer, it cleans it partially. So it just kind of makes it an overall cleaner vivarium. Okay, moving on to the next step is adding the potting soil for the system. Now this isn't your average potting soil, this is organic potting soil, for those who are wondering, because the reason you have to use organic potting soil is because it doesn't have any fertilizers or anything that could be harmful to animals. So it's very important when setting up a vivarium to use organic potting soil.
He was drinking water while you did that. So there's water all over the place.
What? Now it's time to add the hardscape. Now the hardscape for this setup, I wanted to do something different instead of just having like a single piece of wood. So I decided I had this nice big centerpiece rock. Why not try it in a vivarium setup? Because for the longest time I had this in the cichlid aquarium. So I just was wondering, what would it look like if I had it in a vivarium? Okay, so the next parts of hardscape that I decided to add was the same exact piece of wood that I already had in this vivarium, as well as another piece of wood that I just decided, you know, might as well switch things up, add a little bit more hardscape this time. Now let's move on to planting. So for planting, I basically prepared all these plants the exact same way. I made sure all the old potting soil from either the old vivarium, as well as all the potting soil from the pots, were completely removed from the roots. Okay, so now it's time to plant the next tree. Now this one, I'm not sure what the name is, but the important thing is, you guys are probably wondering why I'm trimming the roots. Now, the main reason in this circumstance is because the roots would just get in the way for planting and just make it more difficult to plant. But in the aquarium side of planted aquariums, usually when you trim the roots, it actually increases the growth. So if that works the same way for this vivarium, for this tree, then, you know, it's an added bonus, but that's the reason why I was trimming the roots, is to make it easier to plant. Now it's time to start planting the ground cover plants and foreground plants. This vine is definitely going to be a ground cover plant. It's going to slowly kind of take over the vivarium. And the next couple plants we'll be planting are more plants that I've never actually tried in a vivarium, so curious to see how they perform. So these plants I'm planting in front of the rock are all called dragon's tongue. Now, I've never tried using this species in a vivarium, so I have no idea if it's going to do well or not, but I like the way this plant looks, like the way it was growing in the pot when I bought it at the store, so I guess we'll see if it grows the same way in this vivarium. So this background plant I'm planting here, I'm not really too sure how to pronounce the scientific name. I'll put it up on the screen, but the common name is called magenta. So it's kind of like I feel like this plant might grow a little bit too big for this vivarium if it does in fact do well in this vivarium setup. So I guess we'll kind of just see how it goes, but you know, it's going to be kind of like a cool, more tropical looking plant for the background part of this vivarium. Okay, so the final plant that I'm planting in this vivarium is called purple waffle. As you can see, it's kind of like a larger leaf plant. The reason it's called purple waffle is because the patterning underneath the leaves is purple and it's a waffle pattern. So I guess we'll see how well it does in this vivarium. I have heard and seen that it does do well in vivariums, but you know, every vivarium is different, so we'll see how well it does in mine.
Thank you. Hey guys, so that's it. So we put up the enclosure back to where it's supposed to be. As you guys can see, we literally just went through and did a complete redo for this. As I said before, the reason why I decided to redo this whole thing is because the original scape didn't have any drainage layer. Like, it had a drainage layer, but it was a very poorly set up drainage layer. Like before, it was basically I just put down a layer of aquarium gravel and put no barrier in between. So, you know, over time of the water just circulating, it basically just started to completely mix together. So then when at a certain point, when you put in too much water, it just floods the soil and completely starts killing the plants, as well as, well, starts having Tourmaline have some issues, which, as I said before, it's the reason why it's such a bad thing to have pretty much a terrestrial species of snake in an enclosure where it's just too moist, the snake can start having scale rot, which the way I kind of described it is kind of like, you know how when you're in water for too long and your fingers start pruning up? Well, basically it's that happening to the snake scales, and then over time it just gets worse and worse when it starts rotting, and it's a huge problem. You do not want to have that happen to your snake. But yeah, I think this escape turned out really well. This vivarium, I think it looks beautiful. You know, we kept the ficus plant and whatever that plant's called, and this green pathos. It's kind of like a pothos, but it's not a pothos. I don't know what it's called 100%, but it's this vine right here. But hopefully the purple waffle does well. Hopefully the dragon tongue goes well, and this final species in the foreground. The background, not foreground. This is the foreground. But yeah, so that's it. The last thing we need to do is add these little buggers. So here we go. Got our isopods, and we'll just dump them in. So there we go. There's the isopods in. Hopefully it'll focus anytime soon, and then this current year. Okay, never mind. I'll do it myself. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, these are called isopods, roly-polies. But yeah, these guys do a really good job cleaning up leaf litter, decaying things, and yeah, that's what their job is in here, to just keep it clean, keep it looking good. And yeah, so we'll just close this like so. Oh, not like so. Excuse me. There we go. Okay guys, this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, click the like button below. If you're new to this channel, click the sub button. I do not have a schedule for uploading videos. I just kind of upload videos whenever something interesting is going on, or if I have something going on that, you guys might like. But I do stream every single day on Twitch. So if you haven't checked me out on Twitch, make sure to come say hello at twitch.tv/xrupto. And yeah, we'll have a good time like we always do. So thanks for watching. See you guys next time.